Hi everyone, it's Bethany. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to continue organizing and just straightening up some things around my craft room. So for this first little task, I have this really beautiful set of colored pencils, and I'll link everything that I have down below. But as you can see, they come kind of stacked in this tin, which is wonderful, but when I'm creating, I kind of like to see all of my options really quickly and easily. So I found this really neat organizer on Amazon. Again, everything will be linked down below. And I thought that this would be a really good remedy for storing my colored pencils in a very visual way and also in a very small way. So you'll see later that this rolls up really nice, and I really love how this ends up turning out. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick all of my colors by color family. You can organize in any way that works best for you. You'll see me just organizing with just the little order that makes sense to me. So I'm going to grab all of my little color families. Now I'm working through the reds, and I'm just going to place them in an order that I find works best for me. So I also want to mention that I think my colored pencils, oh gosh, now I can't remember. The number of colored pencils that I have is more than I have in little slots here. So what I'm going to do in the end is I'm going to kind of group my grays and my browns. And so you'll see as this plays out how I end up organizing when I have more colored pencils than little spots to put them in. But it really, really worked well for me and how I like to create. So I'm really happy with it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get everything organized. I'm going to keep grabbing color families and organizing them and filling up this brand new little pouch. In the end, what I decided to do was fill the last 3 slots with some common colors that I find that I grab for. So I am going to do a white, a little bit more of a peach color, and then I'll do a black. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is my remaining colors are in the brown family and the gray family. So I'm going to divide those up by color family, and then I'm going to place them in each little spot on the ends. And this really worked well for me. I was wondering if it was going to roll up well in the end, but it actually does. So I really like how this turned out. It turned out really, really well. I like that I can open this up and everything is very, very visual. And I like that once I roll it up to store it, it doesn't take a lot of space. So here I am just rolling it on up, and there we go. It has a cute little tie. I also really love the floral print, and I think this turned out really, really nice. Again, everything that I'm using will be linked down below in the description box. So if you are curious about any of the new organizational things that I am bringing to my craft room, then be sure to check out that little section down there. And here is the final little look. I love how this turned out. Okay, the next little messy area in my craft room that I really want to see organized is my scrap bin. So I am always cutting down paper. I have little pieces that I'm cutting off of larger pieces as I'm card making. You'll see the variety of scraps that I have here. And I just want to get this all organized because I find that I really, really want to use all of my bits and pieces. Little tiny pieces go a long way, especially in card making when you are working in such a small area. So I like to save as much as I can, but throwing it all in a bin is not working for me. Everything is just too messy. I can't find what I need, and I want to be able to have this organized enough so that I utilize it better. So I have this little bin here, and I also use this to organize my cards once they are completed, and I have them just kind of stored in an area that is a little holding area until I have a event to write a card for. So I had this little bin. I really like it. I'll try to link it down below, but lately I find that I can't find it in the white. I think they do have it in clear, but I'll try my best to link it, and if you see it in the clear option, then that's all I could find. So what I'm going to do here is I have 4 little openings, and I'm going to just start sorting all of my cardstock kind of by color family or tones. So in the front spot, I'm going to do pinks and oranges. The next I will do yellows and a little bit more of a deep orange. And then in the third slot, I'm going to do greens and blues. I don't tend to work with purple a lot, so that's where purple will go, but you won't see any purple in here because for some reason it's just not my favorite color. And then in the back, you're going to see whites, grays, browns, and blacks. Okay, so I also have a little tiny container that you're going to see at the top right of my screen. My daughter bought me this cute little container for my birthday, for my craft space. She knows I love little things like this. And I'm going to use smaller pieces of white. So you'll just see me trimming down little pieces off of paper that I've die cut, and I'm going to put all of my tinier white pieces in that little container up there. So I like keeping smaller things like that in case I want to do little sentiments or whatnot. Now I'm going to just trim down some of these larger pieces of paper. I find that I like that A2 size pretty well, and I usually gravitate towards that. So I'm going to focus on that size when trimming down large pieces. So here's the final look. I really like how this turned out. It's much more organized, and I think that I'm going to use this in a much better way. And then I just placed it in my cardstock drawer that you saw me organize in my last video. I'll link that down below if you missed it. It was a great little organizational video, but that's how it looks. Okay, now in the last video, I was telling you I really needed to address all of those kind of specialty cardstocks that I have in smaller quantities that I really needed to organize. So here you'll see I have some watercolor paper, I have some stark white cardstock from Simon Hurley, and I also have some 130-pound cardstock that I love. But again, all of this is in small quantities. So on the left of the screen, I have this little organizer that Organize More actually put in my last order. So thank you so much, Organize More, for that. And I'll link it down below. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little peg organizer, if you will, to just organize all of those smaller little quantities of paper. So I'm going to use my little mini trimmer to get everything trimmed down. I find that I work really well at the A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to trim all of the cardstock down to that size, and you're just going to trim them down in half and then turn them and trim them down a half again. It is just what works best for me, and that's the size that I usually grab for anyway. So now I'm just going to continue trimming down all of this cardstock, and I'm really liking how this is looking as it's progressing. All right, so after I get everything all trimmed down to size, I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to grab my label maker. I think it would be best just to make sure I remember all of the different cardstocks that I have. That way I don't get confused in the future. So here I am grabbing my label maker. If you don't have a label maker for your craft room, get one now. I'll link this one down below. It is wonderful. I use it for everything. It makes organizing really, really easy, and I love creating labels with it. So I'm just going to label each of these little openings. I decided that I'm going to label underneath the cardstock. I just thought that that worked best for me. I'm not really sure what happened to that one label. It had the little smush on it, but it's all right. I went ahead and just trimmed that off. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just remove that cardstock, and I'm going to place the little labels right underneath on the actual base. That way, once I place the cardstock down into the little slot, it covers the label, but I can still quickly just grab the little cardstock and peek under if I am for some reason confused on which one I am working with. But they're pretty, especially these 3 that I am labeling, they're pretty obvious. Watercolor paper is very obvious, as well as 130-pound cardstock. So labeling just in case, it's always best to be just a tad more organized. That way you're not confused in the future. So I'm going to place all of these little pieces right back in. I love how this turned out. It really ended up solving the problem that I was having with just disorganization with that specialty cardstock. So very happy with this final look, and I hope this inspired you as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize some re-inkers that I have. Concord and Ninth recently sent me the new collection of re-inkers for their new colors, and I was doing a fun little collab with them and they sent these over complimentary. So I'm really in need of getting these organized. So what I did was I went to Amazon, I found a little stand that is actually intended to organize nail polish. And I thought this was a really great solution for my re-inkers. I'll be sure to link this stand down below in case you need to organize smaller little bottles as well. But what I'm doing here is now I'm going through and I am putting them in order by the order that Concord and Ninth has them. It's just easier for me to have them in the same order. So I'm just going through trying to find all of the little names, trying to put them in order. You'll see that it doesn't quite fit one more on that without smushing it. So I went ahead and went to the next row, but it all works out really, really nice. So then I'm going to just finish up getting these organized. And again, since one more just barely fits, I'm going to tuck that right in there. I went ahead and just moved them all down. It just made more sense to me to start in the front, and that's how that finally looked. So it fit really, really nice in my bottom drawer here of my craft island. I love how that looks. It's super organized and it definitely solves my problem of just having these little re-inkers in a little bag. Plus it just looks really, really nice. The next thing on my list of tasks that I need to do is organize some little pouches of sequin that have come in and that I just want to place in this little organizer bin that I have prepared. So I'm going to remove labels from empty containers that have already been used, but now I'm going to go through all of the little pouches that I have recently received and I'm going to organize them. Now I find that in the little size of container that I have and the little tiny little containers that go inside, I usually use about 2 little containers for a pack of sequin. Now you can definitely buy different containers. There are different options, but I'll go ahead and link the one that I have down below. I really like this even though it does have multiple little containers for one pouch. So I'm just going to go through, I'm going to use my label maker once more to label what the sequin is, and I'm also going to label what company it is. That just helps me in the future, especially when I am recording my cards and inspiring you. That way I know exactly what I'm using so that I can link it for you, and if you want to add it to your collection, then it's easy for you to do so. So I'm just trying to do my best to keep the mess down here. Working with sequins can be just a little bit of a tricky task, but I love how this all gets organized in the end. It just is a very visual way for me to see all of my options when I want to put a little shine on my card. I love that I can just really see everything all at once in this container, and it's one of my favorite things that I have in my craft room because it's just a really good storage solution. And just finishing up the last few pouches, I will say that I really like to kind of work in zones when I'm organizing things. So for example, for this task here, I am filling all of the little containers and labeling them as I go. That way I just don't forget which one is which. That just keeps me organized. But in the end, what I'm going to do is I'll then go ahead and label them and put all the labels on the little jars at that point. I just find it easiest to do all of the filling at once and then all of the actual labeling at once. It just helps me get in the mode for each little task. It makes it go quicker for me, but you can absolutely work in any way that you find makes you go the quickest. But again, I like to try to keep like tasks the same, and I like to do that all at once. So filling everything, labeling everything, and then organizing everything in the little container. Hopefully that makes sense, but you'll visually see all of that play out as I am organizing this little container. All right, now comes the task of placing all of the little labels on each of the little containers. Now you will see that I only do one label per set. I just feel like it's wasteful if you have to label each and every one. And when I place them together in the little container, I know that they come as a pair. So I just go ahead and do one little label. All right, now it's time to get all of these organized. Now I do my best, and as you'll see here, I found a duplicate, but I do my best to get them all organized in color order, or just an order that really makes sense to me. And of course, you can go ahead and organize your container in a way that is making you most successful with finding what you need. Everybody does their organization system a little bit differently, but I try my best to kind of keep little color families together, or if I have mixes, try to keep those in the same area like you see right there. Okay, so now it comes the little game of just shifting everything, trying to get everything to tuck right in. There's also the whole element of changing your mind. So you'll see here that I, wanted to place something right in an area that I'd already done. So now I'm going to just continue shifting everything over, placing things where I'd like them, trying to do my best to keep everything together. But in the end, it all works out really, really nice. Again, I really love this container for organizing sequins. I think it's actually made to organize beads. If you are someone who works with beads, this is a really good storage solution for you as well. But I love how visual it is, and I also love that it fits so well in my drawer, and it just saves a lot of space. Okay, so placing the last few things in, I think this turned out really, really good. And now I have organized all of those little pouches that have come in the mail, and everything is in one spot. That's always such a breath of fresh air for me. Now I'm going to begin organizing all of my Concord and 9th colored cardstock, and I saw this on Instagram. I'm going to try to go back and find the account that originally had this idea and link it for you. But what they did is they used these really nice magazine organizers, and they also used the little labels that are used for Concord and 9th inks, and they used those to label each of the tabs, and I thought that was such a great idea, plus super, super easy. Now I will say that the labels that I got are for the ink cubes. If I were to do this again, and I'm also going to speak to this little ripped label in just a second. If I were to do this again, though, I would probably use the labels for the ink pads because they are a little bit bigger. So what I thought here was that I was just being a little too strong here, and I ripped my label when bringing it up. But really, as I kept working, I found that my little labels weren't quite scored all the way through or cut all the way through. And so eventually you'll see me grab my little True Control knife or X-Acto knife and just make sure I deepen the cut on my little labels so that they pull off of the sheet a little bit better. So you'll see me here just making sure that I just deepen the cut around the little label, and then they pull up really, really well. Sometimes things happen, but it's no problem at all. I just went ahead and fixed it really quickly, and then I was able to get all of the little labels up and off the sheet much easier. And now I'm just finishing up all of my little labels. This was a really, really fun way to get all of my little tabs all labeled. I thought this was such a great idea. And here is the difference between the ink pad labels and the ink cube labels that I used. I think I actually will in the future go back through and relabel them with the ink pad labels just because they are a little bit bigger, but you know what? They actually look just fine. So I'm going to keep them like this for now. But look how cute those look. Isn't that a really fun and visual way to organize and get everything labeled? Okay, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to grab all of my colored cardstock and I'm going to put them in their designated little spot. I really love in the end how beautiful this looks. I also love that it's so easy to quickly find and select which colored cardstock that I want to use. I am just in love with this idea. Again, I will try my best to find the account that originally had this idea and link their Instagram down below because I'm really grateful for being inspired with a way to finally get my color cardstock all organized. All right, just organizing the last few little pieces of paper. It turned out really, really pretty, and I'm just really giddy about how this looks. Plus, it just looks so pretty in my craft space, which is always so inspiring. So there it is. I have my first little bin. This did take 2 little bins. I will link those bins down below as well. And everything that I'm using, again, will be linked down in the description box below. I hope that this video was helpful if you are trying to get your own craft space organized. And I hope this just inspired you to slow down, get organized, because I feel, again, that when we're organized, we have an easier time creating. I'll see you all in the next video.